wanted to ask David, one point in your presentation that I really would like to highlight for you. I don't think you're bragging on it good enough. Your management team is exceptional. 17 discoveries, 6 mines built. I know your team was involved with Arizona mining, which I was also involved with. That was a big win for us. Why don't you just take some time to brag a little bit more on these guys? I think people really need to understand that the most success we have is with the people I refer to as the 6%ers, those who not only make one discovery that becomes an economic mine, but those that do it over and over again. Very rare individuals. You have 3 such people on your team. Why don't you talk a little bit more about them?
Well, thanks, Greg. I'll start with Doug Kerwin because Doug's well known. Doug was involved with Ivanhoe for about 15 years, multiple discoveries under his belt. And, Doug is he's an insatiable geologist, I like to say. I mean, he consumes geology for breakfast every day. He's a very avid mineral collector. He spends his life learning more about mineral systems. And the interesting thing about Doug is an expert in these tourmaline breccia pipe systems. And he did his master's thesis on tourmaline breccia systems at JCU back in he won't say when, but I suspect it maybe back in the 60s or so. So that's been really instrumental in our success, is to have that inside knowledge about these tourmaline breccia systems, where many other people could not see or recognize the exploration upside potential at Soledad. We were able to use Doug's knowledge and expertise to figure out what that potential was, and more importantly, how to drill out these breccia pipes and how to continue to explore. On the other hand, we've got John Black, and John is a recognized, very successful economic geologist in his own right. Again, multiple discoveries. John's also, made a major discovery in Peru with the same technical team that he's got working with at Regulus today. And they were able to monetize that asset sell to First Quantum for $650 million. So he's been through that divestment process of a new discovery. So it's really fortunate for our company and our shareholders to have that kind of experience on the board.
Yes, and I made mention to it in my presentation about economic geology. It's these people that when I find one, I tend to follow them, just like I follow Bill Sheriff and anybody like Doug Kerwin or these types of people. They do it over and over again, and so anytime you find people with this kind of knowledge and this kind of expertise, Peter McGaw is another one that I followed, and we've made money with each of these people over and over again. So hats off to you for the management team. It looks like you're getting very close to some breakout here, and I think people should pay attention to buy at these low levels right now in Chakana. So
thank you.
With that, Janet, question for you: how is the bankable feasibility study going for Golden Predator? And why announce a merger before doing the bankable feasible study?
Thanks, Greg. And I'm going to allow Jim to also chime in here a little bit. These business combinations come together when they're ready, and it came together now. We see the combination as adding value to shareholders. And the added ounces and the added management all benefit the shareholders regardless of timing of the bankable feasibility study. The feasibility study is underway. The last piece is the metallurgy from the last drill results that we announced, and it should be out shortly, as previously announced. A great deal of time and effort goes into these, as anybody knows that's been through it. And we've been pushing very hard. COVID had created some delays in it. Everybody working from home, including all consultants, as we've all experienced. But I commend the team that's been putting this together. Mike Myslowski's been leading it. Jim has been a piece of it as well. And from the time that the government validated our licenses, really came in and helped guide it. So I'm going to let Jim finish the question as well, unless I've missed anything, Jim.
No, I've been involved in the feasibility study for the past year. And for those of you who don't know my background, I'm a mining engineer and mineral economist by training. But I've put in put about 8 mines into operation in my life. And my last company, we took it from an exploration company to two producing mines. And that's really my forte. And so why come on board before the feasibility study is complete? Number one, I'm a believer in the project. I believe it's going to be quite feasible. Number two, you know, when the feasibility study completes, we need to move rapidly to push it through any last permit amendments, et cetera, and into a construction mode. So the team has to be in place. And that's where some of the discussions came about in combining the companies. And I bring with me a team with experience in, you know, development, permitting, et cetera. So, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. The next question, I knew this wasn't going to come up when you mentioned it, Janet. What is Group 11? You made reference to that. I understand that's the mint that you own.
Yeah, actually, Group 11's a private company. It's a US-based company that's owned by Golden Predator, Encore Energy, and EnviroLeach Technologies. It came out of the bulk sample testing and work that we did up in the Yukon. We decided that we would replace the smelter process by building our own little unit, and we used EnviroLeach's non-cyanide solution. That eventually came to fruition with the creation of Group 11, which is looking at using an environmentally friendly solution and in situ recovery mining to test on a number of projects and see if that technology is amenable to certain types of projects. So that is 20% owned by Golden Predator, 40% by Encore Energy, which brings in the in situ recovery experts, and 40% by EnviroLeach, which is bringing in the environmentally friendly solution.
Great. Next question is from Mike. Actually, this is my question. It's not one from the audience. Mike, you and I have talked on the phone, and one of the things I wanted to highlight in this new recommendation of Norra Metals in my newsletters, the gentleman that you hired recently, why don't you go into his background a little bit and what a coup this is that you could get such a quality individual and that he came to you and wants to work for you because he sees the potential of this project.
Paulo Cesna, very fortunate. I happened to be talking to a fund manager in Zurich about October last year, and he's a shareholder of mine. And basically, you know, I was just talking to him about all the, you know, the COVID issues that we're going through, and having to, you know, send people over to Europe, and it's a big headache right now. So he said, look, I have a friend of mine. Why don't I introduce you guys and see if he may be willing to come and help you out. And so he puts me in touch with Paulo, and we start talking since October last year. And Paulo says, look, Mike, let me have a look at your company and see what I think of it first. And so I put him in touch with Eric Jensen over at EMX for more information. Plus we have, I don't know, 11 terabytes of data that we've now acquired on this project, okay? And basically, December 24th, he phones me up and he says, Mike, I really like your project. I think this is very similar to what I did for Eurozinc for Lundin, okay? And he worked for Eurozinc for over 6-7 years, and he kind of put the whole package together for the acquisition for Lundin. And he said, look, this is very similar. I think with a little bit of work here, I think you can create enough value that you're not realizing right now, okay? And that is partly some of the things I talked about, which is to go in there and do some partial drilling and bringing all that historical resource into a new 43-101. So I said, look, why don't you become a shareholder of mine? He said, I don't want to be a shareholder. He says, I've already bought your shares. I want to work for you if you can bring me on board. And I said, how about the company you're working for right now? He said, give me 30 days to give a notice, okay? And I'll come and work for you full time. So that's sort of how this happened back in October. So I hired him officially as of the 15th of January. And since then, he's been getting a lot of data. Like, we've dumped all this data onto him. He's now been able to get himself organized with the EMX royalty people. And the reason that we're dealing with EMX royalty is because EMX has a whole infrastructure in Norway that we can work with. So we don't have to worry about hiring a team of miners or drilling company. All we do is we just go to EMX and say, look, okay, here's what we want to do. Here's the program. Here's what we want to spend. Okay, you bring us the infrastructure. Here's our guy that will be in charge of it. And you give us all the support that you have in Norway. And EMX has agreed to do that, which is another very, very key component here that I got very lucky with, which I wasn't even expecting, because I would have had to get all that work of people put together, starting this work program that I want to do. So going forward, that's a very big help for me, getting Paulo, who understands the geology of the mine, has worked on a very similar property, and also to get the EMX infrastructure and all the people that they have in Norway to come and help us out. Okay, that's a very big plus. As you know, that's the biggest issue with a lot of companies today because of COVID.
Right.
So that is two, not one, but two good lucks for us. Okay. And thirdly, you've got a project that's been sitting around for over 30, 40 years, since 97, that hasn't been worked on. It's just been sitting there. So I think there's a big upside here. The market on the company, it doesn't justify the market cap, not yet. Okay, but that's because we didn't put any news out last year. This year, the whole market sentiment's changed. And as a result of that, I'm getting all these phone calls coming from all over the place. And hey, you know what? You've got something exciting. We want to look at participating with you. So raising money has become a bit easier today than it was a year ago.
Yeah, as all of the panelists know on this panel, how important it is to have these key people that have all these important contacts with the very biggest players in the world. David, I know you've had them. You have them. Janet, Bill, Jim, you guys have those connections. And, Mike, it was Dave Cole that originally told me about Norra, and he's a mine finder. I've made a lot of money with Dave over the years. He's been a trusted confidant. And when Dave tells me to look at something, I am all ears, right?
So listen, just talking about David Cole, David and I and Eric Jensen, we've become very good friends going back probably 5 years ago. So we've been building up this relationship. But the last two financings that we did, the EMX CEO and four of their key senior people have participated with me to the tune of roughly 35-40% of the financing in Norra.
Right.
On top of that, EMX is a shareholder of Norra of 10%. Okay. And just very recently, about 2 weeks ago, I got a call from both Eric and David, and they asked me when our next financing would be. They would like to participate for more.
Yeah. Well, that's a good sign.
So that's very encouraging.
Yeah, no, that's very exciting. Another question here. This one's for you, David. In Peru, can you drill with 2 drill rigs year round, or is there some seasonal issues down there?
There is a very distinct rainy season, and it kind of depends on where you're at. We've already drilled year round. Our very first drill program that we started in 2017 ran for 14 months. So we're fortunate that where we're located, we can drill right through the rainy season. And it's really not the rain that's the issue, it's the lightning that's the hazard. And in southern Peru, I was at Las Bambas before, and they have really intense lightning storms down there. And we did have to shut down on a regular basis during drilling programs to avoid that hazard. But we get lots of rain in central Peru, but we don't get the lightning as much, and we're able to drill year round.
Great. With 2 drill rigs, the other question is, second part of the question is, you mentioned 900-meter drill holes. That gets quite expensive. What is your per meter cost for drilling down there?
Yeah, and those deep holes are an exception. The fortunate thing for us is the mineralization starts at surface. These breccia pipes come right to surface. I mean, we have found one blind pipe that's 125 meters below surface, but most of the targets that we've tested and will continue to test are ones that crop out at surface. So that's very helpful. I would say our average drill hole length is probably, out of the 39,000 meters, probably 225 meters long. So that's certainly reasonable. We do drill deeper holes once we get a sense of what the geometry of the breccia pipe is. We like to go down deeper to see, what kind of a vertical extent we have to work with. And then we get busy doing the infill drilling on that shorter part. But we have really excellent rates. A lot of my colleagues in the industry are envious of our rates. Our current rate for drilling is $97 a meter, and that's direct drill cost from the contractor, and that's for HQ drilling, which is the large diameter drill core. So that's really excellent. And then when we look at an all-in cost, and I throw everything in for all-in, the people cost, camp, transportation, fuel, everything, it works out to be $194 US a meter. So, really excellent drilling costs for us in Peru.
Absolutely. And last question, you mentioned that some of the excitement starts to happen for you in your presentation regarding these these breccia pipes that are close together where they're combined below surface. Is that what has you most excited from recent drilling?
Yeah, I guess it's hard to say what has me most excited, because all of those 6 aspects that I talked about, those are all things that we've learned and verified and proven in our drill program that lead, that have demonstrated, the upside potential, stuff that we've realized. The coalescence of the breccias is really a big part of that, and the fact that the breccia pipes do get bigger at depth. Because that means as we get deeper, undoubtedly these deeper extents of breccia pipes will be underground mining. That you're gaining tons, and if we can maintain the grade that we're seeing. And I didn't show a lot in the way of grades, but we often, a lot like breccia 1 that's been drilled out the most. It has a 3% copper equivalent grade. It's 1% copper, it's 2 grams gold, and it's 65 grams silver. Based on 52 drill holes. It's not a resource grade yet, but it's a good indication of what the grade might be in that particular breccia pipe, and we have others that are similar to that. So it is the size extent and going at depth and seeing what the potential could be. If we can get 10 or 20 of these breccia pipes down to 600 or 800 meters, the tonnage potential is going to be quite considerable. And, potentially this could be a tier 1 asset type of discovery.
Great. And last set of questions for Janet and Jim. What is the permitting situation in Nevada now? From my perspective, it's one of the best in the world, but what say you, Janet and Jim?
Yeah.
I'm just gonna let Jim take it.
Yeah, I can honestly say it's quite good. The way it works in Nevada today, we're starting pre-permitting consultation meetings with the BLM. We actually start our meetings the week after next. They've already identified a project manager for us. The BLM and the Nevada Department of Environment will be in those meetings. And there is a statutory 1-year timeline for an EIS review, but before you start the review, the BLM wants to make sure that you've completed all of the required baseline work and all of that type of stuff. So that's been our focus. But it's a very rapid process as long as you follow the rules and are prepared to jump into it.
Yeah, well, that's good. I know with that permitting stuff and the extensions we have on Brewery Creek, it takes some time with the permitting issues. But the other question, last question is, any guess? Would either one of you take a guess when either one of these mines could be in production?
On Tonopah, what I anticipate, if we start the feasibility study fairly soon, what I anticipate is being at a decision point by the end of next year to construct. I believe that Brewery Creek can move quite rapidly also. So it truly is going to be a bit of a horse race.
Well, it'll be fun to watch. Not just one, but two new producing mines coming on board. That's going to be exciting. Well, listen, everybody, thanks for your participation. Wonderful panel, wonderful presentations. I highly recommend all three of these companies to all of my subscribers and anybody who's listening. These are the types of companies that make a life-changing event for us when they have success. So with that, I wish everybody a good weekend, and we'll talk soon.